The following is a Mission Studios podcast.
Please remember, my little Podverse family, like, subscribe, and leave a comment on your podcast platform of choice. It helps me out and works the algorithm to get better rankings and bring our little podcast family to more listeners. Thank you, and on with the show. Welcome to the Podverse podcast. We like to stir up minds, emotions, and thoughts. Episodes will be emotional, some will be a bit comical, and everything else in between. But all will have a message and be given from the heart. So sit back, get comfy, and enjoy the journey. I think you offended them and hurt their feelings. Oh, how did I do that? Well, I was listening from over there, and what you said made him react, and it looked like he was really offended, and there were some very hurt feelings there. This week, I need to examine that exchange because, if not that exact example, something very close to it is way too often a part of our everyday exchange. The problem is, there are 3 unproven assumptions and 1 huge disconnect. The 3 assumptions are assuming someone's feelings were hurt, thinking their reaction is a known fact, and thinking how a look can be read and analyzed without the full context of someone else's conversation. Where is the rule that allows someone else to interject their opinion or assumptions after the fact? First, let's examine these assumptions, then dig into the serious disconnect. I am not saying those assumptions are necessarily wrong, but without being in the situation or conversation that is happening, what right does anyone have to interject their perceived empathy? People a lot of the time see a situation and decide it is their business through their perceived compassion to feel hurt or offense on behalf of another being. Want to talk about privileged? Placing how we feel or interpret an interaction for another person, then placing the blame on someone that is being honest? How about asking inward questions like, is this really my business? Should I stick my nose in? Not many people sit with the person they perceive to be hurt and ask questions trying to clarify and resolve why. If any ill feelings are even present, how do we as a society get to the point where we stop owning other people's feelings and just be there for them when they need us? As outsiders looking in, we need to ask ourselves questions like, why did I react like that? Why did I feel like that? Or even, what the heck was I thinking? Are all appropriate questions. These are what should happen before any blame on someone else is even thought about being placed. These assumptions are what start everyday issues, and until we as individuals stand up and own our feelings, when a conversation is happening, there will be far more misunderstandings than there will be resolutions. Now, on to the disconnect. I have to ask when hearing or reading the first opening statement, whose responsibility is it to worry about hurt or offense? Using me as an example of the person that said the supposed hurtful or offensive statement in the opening dialogue, why am I responsible for someone else's hurt or offense? As long as I responsibly own what comes out of my mouth, and what I say is not deliberately hurtful and maintaining truth in my statements, why is the onus on me to be responsible for someone else's feelings or reactions? We as human beings deal with hundreds of personal interactions every day. How we as individuals interpret those interactions is the key to understanding ourselves. Then we have to allow ourselves to take responsibility for the hurt or offense we feel and look inward. If we choose to be offended by what people say to us, and only a few interactions are positive, what does that say about our mental state? Are we so disproportionately unsettled that we have to create an offensive butthurt reaction rather than own our crap? When the chips are down, the truth is offense is taken, not given. The reality is whatever comes out of my mouth can be interpreted in any number of ways. If one chooses to take what I say with a negative mindset, they may very well get offended. My question is, how is that my responsibility? When we have a negative thought that results in either offense or hurt inward feelings, in most cases the feelings cause us to look for a place to put the blame. And usually that place is outward, because we think about what is done to or said to us. Because our learned behavioral thought is ego, which in most cases prevents us from accepting responsibility for the negative connotation we place on statements we do not like and we place the blame anywhere else. Always remember, offense is taken, not given. How many times have you heard, "I'm giving you offense"? No, it does not happen that way. The phrase is always, "I am offended by that." That, my friends, is taking offense. One thing we need to do is stop that negative process from ever happening. Stop that SOB from even becoming a finished thought. Do not put a full stop at the end. Do not even let it finish. Change it mid-thought and replace it with a positive or neutral inward question. Why am I? Why do I? Or why did I? These questions are a way we can allow ourselves to look inside and come up with the honest answers to those questions. Then we start healing our damaged and guarded psyche. We really need to start looking inside and working on owning our crap. My inside question this week is, when was the last time you, the listener, actually stopped mid-offense and changed your thought process and decided maybe this is not meant as an offense? Maybe it was the way you interpreted the situation. From that thought now, you can start to delve inside and ask, why am I, why do I, or why did I? The emotions you felt may not have ever been intended the way you thought. It may be because of an inward issue. That, my friends, is yours to judge. This week, my little Podverse family, while we're out and about and we have a situation or conversation that we feel offended by, we need to stop and really think about whether or not we have the right reaction. I mean, really look at it and ask, why am I offended? If the offense is taken and not given, why do I have such stinking thinking? If you wish to hear more about where this opinion formulated, and you can handle explicit content, give a listen to my brother and I as we get a little bit raunchy on our other show, the Missionary-Position-Podcast. Be safe, be informed, and be well, my little Podverse family. I love you all. See you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Podverse Podcast. Whatever you take from this message, it is given freely and with the utmost respect. Any support for the Podverse Podcast is always welcome and can be left at our website, www.pod-versecom. Whether support is by way of suggestion, story, constructive criticism, or maybe you wish to sponsor an episode, there is never any obligation. We just hope to create a wonderful experience for you in this Podverse community. Also, be sure to check us out on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Podverse Podcast Group or on Twitter at pod_verse. Chat with you in the next episode.